postgraduate school. Realizing the importance of learning process, curriculum and learning method are continuously developed in order to adjust the dynamics of stakeholders' needs. Nowadays, UNPAD has used student-centered learning method. That is, learning method focuses on students as the base to actively involve in developing knowledge, skills, attitude and behavior with competence-based curriculum. Supported with professional faculty members and staffs, UNPAD is capable of generating competitive and characterizing graduates. Until now, it has registered 10,000 of students from all over Indonesia and hundreds of international students studying in Universitas Padjadjaran. To optimize the education and learning processes, UNPAD is supported with various representative supporting facilities such as library, Basic Science Service Center, Language Center, e-learning, teaching hospital, and dental hospital. In addition, UNPAD is also equipped with student dormitory, health facility, sport facility, campus transportation, banking, hall, and entrepreneurship facility. Such various facilities are supported with the utilizing of information technology. Besides supporting the academics quality, Universitas Padjadjaran also fully supports the activity of student character building through some student unit. As a part of society, Universitas Padjadjaran absolutely realizes that its function is limited not only in teaching, but also social and cultural aspects. Some social activities, society empowering, and research implementation have been conducted to give real benefits for all society. Universitas Padjadjaran, straightening and developing together with society. From West Java, for Indonesia, to the world through SDGs.
Greetings from Transcendent 2021 Massive Open Online Course in Cleft, Lip, and Palate, held by Faculty of Dentistry, Universitas Padjadjaran, collaborating with Smile Train and Indonesian Cleft Center that has been going on for a few weeks. My name is Shiva Biandra. I'm a student from Faculty of Dentistry, Universitas Padjadjaran, and I will be the Master of Ceremony in today's live discussion. I see that we came from different countries, so I think it is appropriate to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone here. Greetings to Dr. Afieharo Michael from University College Hospital Ibadan, Nigeria. Thank you for being here, Doctor. It's been an honor, a pleasure, and we really appreciate your presence here. How are you, Doctor? Sorry, Doctor, you are still muting your microphone.
Hi, hello everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me for this program. It's indeed a privilege and an honor to be here.
Very great. Thank you, Doctor. And we also have Dr. Erli Sarilita as our moderator today. Hello, Doctor. How are you?
Hi, Shiva, and hello, Dr. Michael. Very nice to meet you today.
Greetings to all the participants. Thank you for participating in this course, and thank you for attending this live discussion session. So, Doctor, today is our second live discussion for this 8th week, and we are going to discuss the topic standards for reporting outcomes of cleft care. This live discussion will be separated into 2 sessions, in which the first session, Dr. Michael will be answering the questions that have been asked in the forum in the platform of our course. The question will be presented on the screen in a PPT, and the participants have already watched the lecture, so don't worry, doctor, about the related topics. But I don't think everyone can make it to this live discussion, so maybe you will see only 40 people in this Zoom meeting, but don't worry, the other 800 already watched your lecture video. And then in the second session, the participants will have the opportunity to ask the questions directly in this Zoom meeting in the chat box or directly to Dr. Michael. And before we proceed to the next session, participants who have questions might write down their question in the chat box, including their name, their institution, and the country where they came from. So first session, we may start now, and I would like to give the spotlight to Dr. Erli as our moderator and Dr. Afieharo Michael as our speaker. Doc, you may start the first session and start today's live discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Shifa. Dr. Michael, thank you for sharing your time. I'm sure you're very busy in the hospital, but you can make it today, so I'm really thankful for that. So, Doctor, we already have some questions here. Maybe Shifa can help me to display the first question, Shifa. Yes, okay, thank you. So we have question from Shifa, our MC. Do you think every country needs their own standard of reporting outcomes?
Yeah,
Yes.
so thank you very much for this question, which is brilliant. Indeed, I believe every country should have their own standards because just as we all know, we are diverse, you know, in the way our culture is diverse across countries, across continents. So it will be great for every country to have its own standard. However, it will be good for those standards to be validated standards such that within the country, every segment of the country has a unified standard so they can compare their outcomes with. Now, having said that, while a country may have its own standard, it's great depending on the disease condition that there is a standard way of reporting outcomes that can cut across the continents and therefore be international.
Okay, doctor, thank you very much. So perhaps we will move on to the next question, Shifa. So which outcome assessment method do you think is the most complex and the most difficult to implement from Faras?
Pardon me, from Faras? Oh, okay, that's
yes.
All right, so there are several outcome measures, and if I could start by saying what a good outcome measure is that which is simple and that which is simple to use and that which can actually measure the disease condition that one is referring to. There are outcome measures that are objective, and then there are those that are subjective. And if you go through the lecture, we've met there are several outcome measures. So it depends on what disease condition one is talking about. So if we're looking at the cleft lip, for instance, we have the plan score. We can use Likert scale, and then we can use the cleft Q, for instance. All of them, depending on what one is measuring, can be applied. That there's this recent tool, the IQ tool. It seems to be quite bulky and may take quite some time for anyone feeling it to feel it. So if one says most complex and difficult to implement, it's difficult to, you can't take one and say it's difficult. It depends on the context in which one is looking at it. Before outcome measures come out, the questions must be tailored to the disease condition, and it shouldn't be so bulky. So I can't say, oh, this outcome tool is most complex or this outcome tool is difficult. But it depends on the context in which you're looking at it and the culture in the setting in which it's been applied. So to summarize, an outcome tool which hasn't been used in your country and in which the questions do not, the patients in your own country cannot relate to those questions, I will say is complex and difficult to implement. Thank you. I hope that's clear.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Doctor. We still have, I think, several questions. Maybe committee can help me. Okay. What is the major disadvantage of not reporting the outcomes from Gretanza?
No, that's a great question, because this question suggests I should choose one. And I would say the major disadvantage is one, as a healthcare provider, not being able to measure what one has done for a patient. So we intervene in cleft care, for instance. How has that impacted on the life of the patient? If we can't measure it, there's no way we can improve on it. There's no way we can compare with other ones. There's no way we can know how the patients feel. So I think a major disadvantage is not being able to know whether what one has done is good or bad without an outcome measure.
Yes, right. Thank you, Doctor. We still have more questions coming. For the methods of outcome assessment, which one do you usually use in your patient from Maulida?
So in honesty, we do not use any standard outcome which we document. And that was really the reason for the lecture. And it's important that we begin to early on address this. Those who are just going into cleft care need to understand that outcome assessment is important. We have helped, some authors in my region have published outcomes using visual analog score. So you ask a patient, how well do they think this intervention has helped them? And they say scale from 1 to 10. And so the person can say 9 out of 10 or 4 out of 10. That's seemingly the easiest which we implement. But like I said, we do not have an objective one that we use presently, but we're planning to implement the Cleft queue.
Okay, so Cleft queue, that the one that you're trying to implement in your center, Dr. Michael?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
So I have the follow-up questions from this. So in terms of post-surgery outcome, I think there are several outcome assessment, maybe from aesthetic and from symmetry, perhaps. Can you elaborate more? And then which is there any one protocol that combine all assessment for in terms of post-surgery outcome?
So I will thank you for that. So for what you've mentioned, there is no one tool that combines all, because let's take, you're looking at the aesthetics now, for instance. There is the visual rating scale, for instance. There's visual rating scale, there's the Ashamatade scale, that when we look at this, we'll find that it doesn't look at a three-dimensional outcome of the repair, you know. So, yes.
Okay. So, so you mentioned before we move on to the next question, I have another follow-up question. So you mentioned that in your Cleft Center has not started, has just begun applying or implementing the outcome assessment. In Indonesia, I don't think we already start. We still haven't reached that phase, assessing the outcome. But in your center, do you apply or implement this outcome assessment in all disciplines at the same time, or maybe start with for surgery first, or can you explain your experience?
Yeah, so when we're talking about outcomes, we want to know what the situation was before, and then after our intervention. Now, like I said, we are planning to implement. Hitherto, what we do a surgery, we look at the cleft lip, and the surgeons come together and say, okay, this is good or this is bad. You know, is there a lip notch? Is this? Then what an outcome measure does is that it's documented, and you can objectively say, okay, this is where we started from. Now, if I look back at all the meetings we've had to look at the pictures of the patients we've done, we don't have it that to say, okay, this is what we said. You know, we may write it in our case notes, or the patient has a lip notch, for instance, or there is a vermilion deficiency. But what the outcome tool will tell us everything, and additionally tell us how the patient feels about what we've done, you know, for the patient. So in implementing it, so we are yet to implement it. So the idea, if we're going to use the Cleft Q, which we feel is simple and easy to understand, because the components of the Cleft Q relate to what our patients typically use it, then we find that Cleft Q is applicable was designed for those from 8 to 29 years. You know, so in implementing that, we're going to apply it within that age group. And if the need to expand that age group, then we probably would need to validate it more for other age groups.
Okay.
And for children with clefts that are younger, it's more likely going to be the parent who is going to assess that outcome of what one done.
Yes, of course. Okay, I understand. Okay, Shiva, maybe we have more questions.
Yes, doctor. Next, please.
Yes, from Farsha. Because there are a lot of outcomes to assess, who is responsible for monitoring a patient's outcome is recorded all the way. Is it the team leader of the CLP treatment team?
Yeah, well, responsible for monitoring. So it's still, the question still, I'll start from the Cleft Q. Now, the Cleft Q tells one what the patient feels. Right. So that is a simple tool to say, this is what you've done, and this is how I feel after what you've done. Now, when you want to implement an outcome, and like you said, there are several outcomes, you want to decide which outcome is important at a certain point in time. So for a palatal repair, for instance, interested in speech, every member of that Cleft team needs to understand what outcomes are being documented right from start and to the end of it. Because the role of the team leader really is going to be to ensure that those outcomes are being recorded. The team leader, therefore, will be responsible, but not necessarily the one who is going to be doing the documenting. So the team should come together to agree on these are the outcomes we are going to be assessing. And every member of the team, if it's a speech provider that the patient is going to see or an orthodontist at a point in time, they know what those outcomes are and begin to report, while the team leader monitors to ensure that those outcomes are being recorded. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. We still have one more question, I think. Yeah, from Erli. During this COVID-19 pandemic, are there any setbacks in assessing the outcomes of the Cleft patient?
Oh, certainly, because the COVID-19 has made it difficult for people to come together. You know, social distancing is being encouraged a lot more, and virtual clinics, virtual consultations happen more. So the initial setbacks, I would say, are being overcome by designing innovative ways to still assess those outcomes, even with social distancing. So yes, we don't have the patients can come for us to easily assess, but I've had to send a Cleft queue, for instance, on WhatsApp to a patient. Please fill these forms, and then the person returns to me. So that's a setback, and that has been overcome by being able to send it soft copy. The other way in which we can now assess patients is WhatsApp is the commonest and cheapest way we do it. So we run clinics. We can see the patients via WhatsApp. They don't have to come to the clinic, and we can see and discuss what the issues are and record the outcomes. But one major setback is that you can't outcomes in which you have to measure, like for lip repair, you want to measure lip height, or orthodontics, you want to measure jaw relationships. Those will become those at the moment are limited because we don't want to, we walk around the airway. We want to limit how much contact we do with that. So yes, those outcomes where you have to be really close to take those measurements around the airway are an issue right now.
Yes, that's correct, Doctor. Okay, Siva, we have question, or this is the last one?
This is the last one from the first section. So now we will proceed to the second session. Please, student committee, help gather the participants' question if there is questions in the chat box, and please present it to the screen. Thank you.
While still waiting for the audience to pose question for you, Doctor, what is the main challenge when you trying to implement the outcome measure in your center?
The main challenge is communication. And like I said, some people are not literate, so they can't read. And if that outcome measure is something they have to read and assess, then that needs to be clearly explained to them. We need to find someone who understands their language and be able to do that. So that is a limitation. We'll find that younger children find it difficult to express themselves, that it's been advised that parents can do that for the children. Yes.
Yes, okay. Okay, we're still waiting, but I still have one more question for Dr. Michael, if you don't mind. So, Doctor, in terms of the reporting the outcomes, the recording it, do you prefer recording it in digital, or do you prefer to hand out the forms to the patients? Or after that, you need to digitally record it again?
Oh, okay. So right now what we do is to hand out the form to the patients to fill.
Okay.
And ideally, it's designed to be self-reporting. So just give it to the patient, let them have time, they fill it at their own leisure. Then you take back the forms and digitalize it.
Oh, and after that, digitalize it. Yeah.
Yes, and digitalize it, because ultimately you're going to need to analyze it, and it has to be digital for one to analyze. So as the forms are being returned, you immediately digitalize it. And the good thing about that is that you would, while the hard copy takes up a lot of space, if you're going to do 3,000 patients and you have a bag or a cabinet full of forms, there's always that backup should any of your digital platforms just get missing, and that can happen if if the laptop crashes and all yours. So even in digitalizing, it's good to have several backups for that digital archive. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So I think the curious students already posted their questions in the forum. So that's all the live discussion session. Oh, we still have here Vinda.
One raised her hand.
Okay, sorry, I didn't say. So can you add Vinda to the spotlight, please?
Okay, so hello doctor, good afternoon, good evening from Indonesia, from Jakarta, Indonesia. So I have a questions about this topic. What is the most important outcome assessment in your opinion?
So with cleft care, for palatal repair, the most important outcome is speech function. And for lip repair is aesthetics, and typically it's how the patient feels about the repair.
Okay, so speech function for cleft palate, and for cleft lip, it's aesthetic and about how the patient felt.
Yes.
Okay. That's very clear. Thank you so much, doctor, for your answer.
You're welcome. And if I may add, Erli, to that recording of outcomes, I think it's good to also have a research assistant on the Cleft team. Because sometimes we're really burdened with so much clinical work and we may forget. But if you have a research assistant on the team whose primary responsibility is to ensure that those records come in, it ensures that you don't also lose some records or outcome measures along the way.
That's right, Dr. Michael. So it is important that the Cleft Center dedicate staff to collect and organize the outcome assessment. Yeah, doctor.
Yeah, that's very, very important.
Okay, we still have two more questions. Okay, from Alia first. Do other countries use different method for aesthetic assessment as a gold standard?
Oh, yes, there are some. So there are the studies like the Cleft, the Cleft, but if you look at the literature, it's all coming down to, you'll see the end of those reviews suggest that we need to have a unified one, and the International Consortium for Health Outcome Measures, so that's why that body was established, such that a cleft repair in Indonesia, for instance, can be compared with a cleft repair in Europe or in Africa. So that's where the ICHOM, the International Consortium for Health Outcome Measures, come in. So yeah, different countries have different methods. The Asha-Magdadi scale, for instance, is popular in the US, but now every cleft care provider has recognized the need for us to have a unified outcome that can cut across borders.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. I think we have here our last question for this session from Dr. Ardianti from Indonesia. From your experience, doctor, when or how old is the patient usually reach final outcome assessment? So it means the patient already finished all treatment.
So this will depend on the diagnosis. So for someone who comes with an incomplete cleft of the lip, for instance, and that child comes as an infant, that assessment at that time will be dependent on the parent. But I would say the final outcome assessment for that child would perhaps be when the child becomes an adolescent and is more self-aware, more socially involved, and can say, all right, this is the way I feel about this treatment. For those who have clefts of the lip and palate, there are quite a number of pathologies there. There's the lip, there's the alveolus, there's the teeth, there's the jaws. And those pathologies, one may not see until even adulthood, for instance, where they begin to have malocclusion, depending on the severity and the intervention that has come in. So it's really maybe patient dependent, and cleft type specific. So for someone with that deformity of the lip and the palate, that assessment may not come until the end of treatment, which is usually adolescent and early adult stage, where all the orthodontic work has finished. And indeed, with cleft care, sometimes it just doesn't seem to end, depend on the severity. They may come, okay, there's this nostril that doesn't look so good. So I would say the end may actually depend on a lot on the patient, and if the surgeon feels there's nothing more I can do.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Dr. Afieharo Michael, for the sharing your knowledge. This is very interesting session. Thank you, Doctor, for sharing your time here with us. I'm sure the students will really appreciate your time here today. So I will give the session back to Shifa.
Thank you, Dr. Michael and Dr. Erli, for the session. It was very insightful, and we had a lot of great questions and also very insightful answers from Dr. Michael. And I wish that Indonesia could start recording the outcome assessment properly so that we can create better treatments for the patients. I think it was a great opportunity for all of us, the participants, the committee, and also the doctors. to hear the knowledge from Dr. Afieharo Michael on this special occasion. In these hard times of pandemics, we can still find the bright sides. I believe that this will be an inspiration for all of us to learn about cleft lip and palate more and more, and even further to implement the best treatments for our cleft patients, no matter how hard the challenges are. Thank you so much for everyone. Goodbye and stay healthy, everyone. Before I'll leave the meeting room, please, we have to take a picture first, sorry. Oh, Dr. Michael
Udah nggak ada
already.
ya?
Yeah.
Ya udah.
Okay,
Yang
thank
ini
you.
aja screenshot aja.
You